Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Transformer podcast. My name is Randy Koo, and I'm your host. So, today, this time I want to do a little something different. So, I kind of want to do a soft reboot of this channel because one of the things I like to say here is that we're all on a spiritual journey together. And what's a journey without the first step, right? So, I never really talked about how I myself got on this path to spirituality. And that's what I really want to talk about today. And, I kind of upgraded my production a little bit. There's a new light over there, and there's a new microphone arm here that I hope really works. I tested it; should be okay. But yeah. So I kind of want to start on a clean slate. So this episode will be my origin story, so to speak. First, I would like to once again thank everybody for tuning in, joining my channel, and want to say a big thank you for everybody who's seen my previous work and uh, click the subscribe button, drop the like. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's get to it. So I consider myself one of those people who've had two awakenings, not just one. But today we're just going to talk about the first one. So there'll probably be a part two of this. And I first started my spiritual journey I would say, about 20 years ago. So that would be early to mid 2000s. Yeah, it's quite a while ago. And bit of background. So until very, very recently, I've always been 100% completely lost. And by that I mean, when you grow up, when you go to school, your friends, your classmates, some of them always seem to know what they're going to do, right? You got the really ambitious people, the real go-getters who want to do the things like engineer, they want to become a doctor, they want to become a lawyer, they want to become an entrepreneur, real go-getters, right? And then you got other people who seem to have talent, right? They want to become a world class musician or a famous athlete, that kind of thing. But me, I've never had the drive. I've never had the talent. So I've been lost since pretty much day one that I've been put onto this earth. So that's where it all starts. And there's a few good things about being lost, about not being ambitious, and not really having much of a talent to point you in the right direction in life. And one of the things that a silver lining that I got out of being a totally lost person was I learned to go with the flow. So that's a pretty big deal in retrospect because that's kind of a skill we might need more than ever right now. Because right now in 2025, things are moving at a pretty fast clip, right? We got all this chaotic stuff going on in the world, and there's AI, right, for good or ill, and everything seems to be moving just that much faster. And I think the ability to go with the flow might help, but yeah, so that's one. Another thing that being completely lost was advantageous was because it's got me to ask the really, really deep questions. Being lost, I always wondered, well, who am I? Right? What am I doing here on this earth? Right? And what my life purpose is. Now, the third one, the life purpose, I didn't really find out till very, very late, but the first two, I got answers. And the answers came in the form of a book. So this book is called Conversations with God, and it's by a man named Neale Donald Walsch. So Neale Donald Walsch, in his book, he literally, he's a channel. I don't think he considers himself that. I think I read in an interview that he doesn't consider himself a channel, but I think it's a bit of a channelish because he claims to be able to converse with God, and he wrote these sets of books, 3 volumes. I bought I bought the edition that had all 3 volumes, Conversations with God 1, 2, and 3, and I devoured them. Like, not in a day or anything like that, but over a span of time, I just ate it all up. So the 2 questions that it answered is, who am I? And what am I doing here? And this book answers them really well. And I'm going to, spoilers, who I am is the same as who you are. We're all the same, deep down. And who we are divine beings of unconditional love. I said it. So we are all divine beings of unconditional love because God is a divine being of unconditional love, an infinite being, in fact. And Christians know this. Right? We were all made in the image of God. So I'm going to come out and say it. We are gods, every single one of us. Now, the term God is loaded. I understand that. But I also think it's loaded because the old definition of God, I personally don't think it's accurate. And it's thanks to this book, Conversations with God, that I realized that it's not just how inaccurate it really is. God is a force. God is unconditional love. And we are also that. So, first question answered. Second question is, what are we doing here on Earth? And this one's pretty simple. We are simply here to experience life. We are here as God beings to experience life for God, if that makes anything sense at all. Simply put, according to the books, God created us to experience itself. We came down here so that we can be the experiencers. We are the observers. We are the consciousness. And we simply live our lives. And we take all the stuff we've experienced, all the stuff we've been conscious of, and we take it with us. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about what that means. I'm not entirely sure myself, but suffice it to say that I've had those 2 questions answered. And that I considered my first awakening because there may be more than one definition, but the definition I believe of an awakened individual is just they simply know who they are. And I know who I am. And I know what I'm doing here. I think by that definition, that makes me awakened. Now, I know a lot of people may not agree. I mean, I haven't had any mystical experiences. I haven't stepped into the Ganges River in India and had like this crazy sense of love and divine aspect flowing into me. Like, I've never experienced that. Right? So, how do I know any of this stuff is true? Well, I just do. I know that's not a very satisfactory answer, but there it is. Because I think everybody has had this experience where they hear something. Maybe a friend or a family member say something to them, or maybe they hear something spoken in a movie, or maybe it's a line from a song. Could be anything. Like, you hear something, and I'm sure a lot of people hear something, an utterance, a phrase, and it sounded so true that they know it in their hearts and in their guts. I mean, they just know it. I think a more accurate way is when you hear something is true, you kind of feel it. You feel it's true. You know it's true. You feel it. Deep down in your soul, you know it. So, anybody who understands could probably think where I'm coming from. Like, that's, I hate to say it, that's all I've got. All I've got is this feeling that everything in this book, Conversations with God, is 100% absolutely true. And I walked away with that. So, in a nutshell, walking away with that actually helped me learn a new skill. And that skill is faith. I'm going entirely on faith by something written in a book that I feel personally deep down is true. And you know what? Faith helps because faith ties in very neatly to going with the flow. When you're going with the flow, like, you don't really know where it's going to take you, sort of, right? And there has to be an element of faith that going with the flow will take you to some place where you want to be, where it's good for you. That's for the highest good. And it takes faith to do that, to believe in going with the flow and surrendering to the flow and just letting it lead you, letting it guide you, and letting it take you where it needs to go. And there has to be a good place for you. And that's where the faith comes in. You have to believe in that. Otherwise, you're just going to struggle. And that's what I believe. So those are the three things, right, that my awakening kind of taught me. It taught me to go with the flow, faith, and it taught me about who I really was. So that's, maybe it's best to put it like this. If what I believe is true, then my life should be okay, right? And, looking back, I think my life right now is okay, maybe even more than okay. That doesn't mean I don't have any problems, but I think the biggest proof of what I believe is real is that I don't really have much drama in my life. Like, I'm a peaceful guy by default. Like, not really a big believer in conflict. And as part of being who I am, being like a divine being of unconditional love, being God, you're also a creator being as well. So I believe that I created this life, the life I'm living now, and it makes sense because I don't have a lot of drama in my life, and I also love peace. So put the two together, and I kind of got what I want. When I say I don't have any drama, that doesn't mean I don't have any problems. I mean, work isn't being very kind, but let's just put it like that. So I have problems, but I don't have drama. So what do I mean by that? I mean, yeah, I have some childhood traumas, like a lot of people, I think. But right now, me and my parents get along. We're cool. When we visit, I try to keep it short. But we don't have much drama. No yelling, no screaming, like when I visit them. And at work, yeah, I'm kind of experiencing a bit of a crisis at work. But at the same time, I'm immune to office politicking. No backstabbing, no malicious office gossip. No drama. As for my home, well, my wife might not agree, but I don't think there's much drama between us either, although she would probably tell you otherwise. There are things I've done that went straight into her heart, and not in a very good way. But I think now we are mostly drama-free. As a matter of fact, just last week, we got our wills done, right? Serious stuff, this, right? We made our wills, and we made it without drama. So I think the spiritual stuff really works. At least it worked for me. Now, yeah, I mean, I started this path 20 years ago, and does that mean it took me 20 years to reach, like, here, this kind of peaceful existence with no drama? Not really. I mean, it's step by step, but I've been having a relatively peaceful life for, like, I say ever since I started this spiritual stuff, right? And I'm only really giving a nutshell version. There's a lot deeper, but I just want to go with where I started and a little bit of where I ended up. And yeah, that's it for this one. So yeah, that was pretty personal, pretty hard to get out, but I think if I'm serious about doing this podcast, if I'm serious about talking about spirituality, I have to get this out there. Have to say where it all started. And we're on a spiritual journey, all of us together. So that's really the whole point. that's all for me today. I think I've spoken a little too much already, so thank you for watching. You have been watching the Spiritual Transformer podcast, and I'm your host, Randy Koo. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please leave a like, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you next time.